Good morning and welcome. Excited to have you guys here. Today we are doing transmission number 171. Oh, so good to see you, Jen. Oh my,
Hey, I
look,
didn't realize I was on camera, but I am.
yes, you are for a quick second here.
Good to
Oh,
see your face.
and then there's my sweet brother. So good to see you. My goodness, Elliot, it's been a long time.
Yes, I'm so glad to be with you today.
And what a great day to be together. So
Yes, it is. I know this is going to be like a Hallmark meeting.
yes, well, I know there'll be more people joining, so let me go ahead and mute you guys and let's get the party started. So today is transmission 171. And as you all know, I call them transmissions because this is truly, oh, and here they come. This is truly one of those things that the Creator expresses through me. God speaks through me. And I need to grab one thing. But anyways, what an amazing day for us to come together. I meant to have this ready because there is no such thing as coincidence. Hello, sweet sister.
Yeah.
Good to have you here. I'm going to go ahead.
Hello, hello.
Hello. I'm going to go ahead and mute you guys. Um, okay, so as you know, just whatever gets transmitted through me comes through me. That's why this is called Ascension with A Course in Miracles transmissions. That are taking place. And as as life would have it, because I truly believe that everything is divinely organized and we are just acting out what we have already agreed to be a part of. That's why A Course in Miracles says that the script is already written. And to understand what that script is all about is to really live in a state of faith, of trust, of expectation that the good is always going to be part of your reality, because God wills for each and every one of us to be happy. God wills for us to experience love and joy and peace and happiness. And what a fun day. Look at all these people coming in to be part of this Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And it is called Ascension because we're being given an opportunity through the teachings of A Course in Miracles to train our mind to understand that we're made of love. Love is an energy. Love is a frequency. And when you understand that if you connect to love, let me rephrase that. You cannot not connect to love. You are love. If you allow love to flow through you, that's a whole point of incarnating, is to block love from flowing through us. So we have that experience of what it's like not to be what we are. That is what the third dimension is all about. So in the third dimension, we experience that. And you know what? I have my other chart. Let me pull this one out here. These are the ones we're going to focus. The other one I was coaching last night, and I use the chart of emotions to help my clients work through emotions. We have to move through them like we do steps on a staircase. You've got to take one at a time. You can't go from the low frequency of anger and hate and grief to the high vibes of love and joy instantaneously unless you start petting your cat, or unless you start, smelling a beautiful flower. Then you can shift frequencies quickly because the mind gets distracted. It gets moved out of one frequency and suffering and moves into a frequency of joy. And it's usually something, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, it's something physical, like taking a walk or petting your cat or your dog or whatever it is. So in understanding A Course in Miracles, we're learning to train our mind to move us from a low frequency, but this happens over time. Sometimes it can take decades. For every one of us that is on this journey right now, it has taken us lifetimes. We have been preparing lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to ascend to a higher frequency. If you study the works of Dr. David Hawkins and you understand the book Power versus Force, he outlines in the map of consciousness the process that we go through to train our vibration. Course in Miracles helps us train our mind by understanding our thinking. There's only two thought systems. and you got to pick between the two. And Dr. David Hawkins, what his brilliance, his gift to humanity was helping us understand that thinking has a frequency. Your thoughts vibrate. If they're fear-based thoughts, are going to vibrate in density. You're going to be tight and tense and constricted, contracted. You're going to feel small. The thoughts that operate in truth, that vibrate at the level of truth, you're going to feel expanded. You're going to feel light. You're going to feel happy. You're going to be in alignment with what God wills for you. That is when you really are, not my will, but your will be done. And God's will is only that you be happy, period. End of story. You cannot argue with A Course in Miracles. It tells you, you cannot alter what it says, which is that God wants you to be happy, but you can take what you want, however much you can take at any point in time. If you're in deep suffering, the idea that you can be happy is a very difficult concept to accept in the moment, because our minds have learned, they've been trained to believe that we don't have the power to shift. We've been trained to believe that if you're suffering, well, that's your lot in life. We've been trained to believe that you deserve to feel small, that you deserve to be powerless, that you deserve to be in guilt and shame and all those low vibing frequencies. We were not taught, because it is not convenient for the establishment for you to be a powerful sovereign being. And we're going to get into how that shows up in the world, because what we're experiencing right now, we're in the midst of watching the Great Awakening, a shift in consciousness, an opportunity to make a choice for what reality do you want to experience. That means that if you understand that everything is frequency, and we get to experience the frequency that we want to experience, we create our reality because we're experiencing what we feel at a soul level is what we want to have right in this moment. If you understand that, then you are at a very amazing place in your incarnation. Not even just your incarnation of this time, but in your awareness as a soul of all that is happening in the cosmos. You know that you chose to incarnate on planet Earth at this time because you would be here for the bifurcation that is taking place, the splitting consciousness. We've been operating on one track. That train track is the third dimensional track. That's what I focus on here. When we don't know who we really are, we're operating in reaction because our emotions run the show, and our belief system is based on misinformation. We're not grounded in the truth of who we are. That's the third dimension. We're operating in fear. The ego is in control, sort of. So at the human level, the ego's in control, but at the soul level, the script is written. You are here to experience this shift. You're here to move from the third to the fourth dimension. What that means is you're moving into the heart. You're doing the work. You have the courage, because that's a frequency right here. Courage is a frequency that comes after pride. Let me turn that off. Sorry about that. I forgot to turn that off. You are made of frequency. And that's what we are. We are the frequency of love that condenses to have an experience of what it's like to not be itself. You cannot not be yourself, but you can have the experience, the perception of not being yourself. It's like when it's Halloween time and you put on a costume. I cannot not be Lina, but for a little while I have an experience of being a witch or a ghost or a goblin or a princess. And I just have that experience. And the death experience is like taking off the Halloween costume. Lina's still there. Well, the soul that you are is going to be there because it is what is eternal and is always there. But in this lifetime, we signed up to take the costume off while we're still here in incarnation. We are waking up while we are still in a physical body. And you know what's amazing about that? When you recognize that you're not a body, that you are the essence of God itself expressing as you, uniquely as you know what that does? It is a unique opportunity to be the embodiment of love and light, to infuse your body vessel with the highest frequency and do exactly what Jesus did 2,000 years ago. You then activate your Christ essence. And what does Christ mean? Christ simply means that you know you and the Father are one. You and God, Mother, Father, it doesn't matter what you call it. You accept that you are love and you embody it. You then radiate that love everywhere, to everybody, to anybody. There is no discrimination, because when you are love, you can't help but just be love. You don't have a mask on. You don't have a costume. You don't have a reason to pretend not to be what you are. So right now, on this physical plane, there is an unleashing of, I'm going to say, millions of beings who are accepting that they are the love of God in incarnation, that we are the Christ, that we are Jen the Christ, Elliot the Christ, Lina the Christ, Natalia the Christ, Dondra the Christ, Jesus the Christ, Mary the Christ. We are all accepting the role that we're here to play. And we are here to play the role of one who sees clearly what is going on this planet. And this planet, the little planet that could, has been suffering, has been stuck in a low density, not because anybody is punishing it or it's a bad thing. It's because it wanted to have that experience. It dropped down into the density that it could go. It went as low as it could go, and now it wants to ascend. This is called ascension in a course with the Course in Miracles. When you understand that your vibration, you know that you have a choice to go up or to go down. It's not good or bad. It just is a different frequency. Like when you go into an amusement park, I use this analogy all the time, and you want to ride the scary rides, that's the world of hell. You want to ride the fun rides, go through the love tunnel, that's the experience of heaven. One is light, one is dense, one is joyful, one, it has a lot of suffering in it. But we all incarnated and came into amusement park planet Earth and decided, okay, well, which ride am I going to take? On this ride that we're on, some want to go and experience dense energy, some want to experience lighter energies, like me. I've been there, done that. I've got the t-shirt. I've been to hell and back. I've been in this world. I've suffered. I've been a liar, a cheater. I've done things that are unconscionable to me today. I have mistreated people. I have talked about people. I have pretended that I was better than, and I pretended that I was less than. Been there, done that. I don't need to do that again. Now that I know that that's an option, I'm complete with it. But to have that awareness that you have a choice, you must go through an awakening. You have to wake up to who you are and then see that you're not what you thought you were. You're not what you were programmed to think that you are. But that shift in consciousness has to come from one who is consciously aware of what you're picking between. Now, amazing things. As always, I try, I don't try, it just always happens. We tie the within and the without. We look at the micro and we recognize the macro, because every single one of us is one out of, 8 billion people on the planet. So every single one of us, either our light is on, our light is dimmed, our light is practically off. And whenever we're operating at that level of frequency, that level of consciousness, well, we gravitate to those who are like beings, and then we create mass consciousness and we create agreements and we participate in the games. And what is happening right now is we have an opportunity to see the game clearly and make a choice, which ride, sorry, I'm mixing metaphors here, which ride, which game you want to keep playing on. So we have an amazing, incredible opportunity with what just has happened in the United States right now. Just last night, we had an election. And what is so amazing about that election is that if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you've been paying attention. Some of us for quite a while. My journey into the world of politics began almost 20 years ago. So I'd already been looking at this stuff and paying attention to what is happening on the outside, because it was a reflection of what was happening on the inside. As I began to do my own inner work and look at the liar in me, the ways that I cheated and that I manipulated people. And the only reason I did that is because I was conditioned to believe that I wasn't enough. So I had to lie and manipulate to get love, to get my way, to say certain things to make people like me. And when you learn at a very young age, because that's where we all learn it as children, I'm watching my little 3-year-old grandson, and I can see the manipulations already happening. I can see when he wants his way, what he begins to do. And I'm watching the parents, how they give in or how they stand firm, and how they lovingly let him know that he is love and he is powerful and he creates his reality. It's just a beautiful thing to watch that my daughter is at a higher level of consciousness than I was as a mother, because as a mother, I went down to my mother's level of consciousness. I dropped down, I took on their beliefs, and I believed what they believed. And of course, that meant that children are supposed to be seen and not heard, that they have power over me, that I lived in a world of hierarchy and father knows best, mother knows best. And, if dad's not happy and dad wants to drink, then everybody has to tiptoe around dad. I learned to manipulate to get my way so that I wouldn't get in trouble with dad. I learned how to withhold. I learned how to become passive aggressive, and that trait went on into my adult years. If I wanted to manipulate somebody, I knew, okay, with this one, do I withhold? Is that the best option, or do I become aggressive? Because those are the two ways that the ego operates when we're in victimization. We move into aggressiveness or passive aggressiveness. That's how it acts out. If you go aggressive, then you're swinging to the other side of the coin, which is you become a bully. Bully, victim energy are the exact same energy, just expressing in different ways. That is quintessential of the ego, and something we need to understand to work through things. As I was understanding that within myself, I began to pay attention to the outer world. I began to see, why are people acting this way? And I began to become an observer. I was recognizing that I am becoming self-aware. And I knew that the only way for me to really wake up was to go through the process of becoming the presence of awareness. And that meant I needed to be aware of what's happening out there. Because once I understood that I don't have to react to what's happening in here, I began to pay attention. What out there usually causes me to react in here? And then I had to see how it tied directly to me, because the outside became just a mirror for me. Oh, this person said this, that person did that, and I reacted happy and I reacted badly. Why? What beliefs do I have to be thinking to cause me to react? Well, when I began to look at that in my life, and I looked at my family as mirrors, my then husband, and through this work that I've been doing, I've had the honor of having 2 different husbands, my baby daddy, who I was with for 23 years, and then a beautiful, amazing man who came in to totally shatter my delusion that I needed a knight in shining armor. So Ken came for 10 years in my life, and Philip was there for 23 years and gave me the opportunity to be a mom and now a grandmother. So as I began to use everybody, because yes, this is part of what we have to do. There is a part of the journey where you basically use the outside to see who you are. And as I was looking at the outside, why am I reacting to this? Why do I need that to change? Why do I need this person to be less than who they are for me to be okay? Why do I need this person to be more? Why do I need my child to live up to my expectations for me to be okay? Why do I need that famous person to not be so boisterous when they're around me? Because sometimes I happen to be around some more famous people. I wasn't, they were better known. Why did I need them to tone it down for me to be okay? I was looking at the places where I was out of balance. And that then eventually began to get projected into the outer, way out there, meaning the political world. So around 2016, so we're talking 8 years ago, actually before that, because it was leading up to that. So probably around 2012 that I was beginning to recognize that the political scenery, that election, I think it was with Obama, would cause activations in me. And I would see myself judging this presidential candidate versus that presidential candidate. I began to pay attention to why am I having these reactions? And at that time, this was the second Obama candidacy. I saw what he had done in the first 4 years. I didn't want more of that. So then I was following Romney, I believe was the Republican one. And I was looking at, why do I think this one makes me feel good? Why do I think this one makes me feel bad? Why do I need this one to save me? Why can't I be free now that I've been studying the Course in Miracles on my own? So I began to pay attention. Then I still watched television. I didn't get rid of my TV till 2014. So for about 2 years, I was watching television, I was watching the news, and I was observing those reactions. This is the power of self-awareness, by the way. When you understand what goes on inside of you, that every irritation then becomes an invitation to see our ego's motivation. And the ego is always motivated in suffering. That's what it wants, yours or somebody else's. And that's what you have to understand. The ego does not want anybody's happiness, period. It is the block to happiness. So I began to pay attention to what was happening on the outside. And then we came to the elections of 2016. And I began to recognize what was happening politically between the two parties. I zeroed in on the Democratic Party because I was supporting the candidate at that time, Bernie Sanders. And when I began to see what that party was doing to him, I began to recognize, oh my gosh, this really is a rigged system. They select their candidates. We don't elect them, they select them. And it became so clear that the most popular person was the person that was not being nominated. And that was such a big eye-opening moment for me. But I knew I can't be mad at Hillary. I can't be mad at the DNC, because if I'm mad at them, it's a reflection of something in me that is still not healed. So I looked at the places where I had irritations, and I saw that they were lying, and that I saw that they were cheating. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm still lying. When I'm judging somebody else, I'm still lying. I'm telling myself I'm spiritual. I'm telling myself, wait, I'm a coach. I'm helping people discover the truth of who they are, but I'm judging them. So I'm lying to myself, saying that I know who they are when I don't. If I judge them, I'm not seeing the Christ in them. I'm not seeing the God in them. So it was very clear, oh my gosh, I am still judging, but now from a spiritual perspective. And of course, I began to pay attention. What's happening on the outside that's a reflection of the inside. And I saw that the political system was nothing more than a physical example, because they're all people. Every single person listens to the voice of the ego or the voice of God. And when you put people who listen to the voice of ego, because we've all been trained into not listening to God, we've been taught about a God that is out there, that is not a God of just love. It's a God of love and fear. It's a God of fire and brimstone. It's a God of turning people into pillars of salt. It's a God that in the Old Testament sacrificed babies. So when we are taught about this God that is dysfunctional, is because we're being taught about a God that is being projected by humans. Human egoic stuff gets projected on God. Because I am selfish or greedy or lying or insecure, well, then I project that on that God out there. I just make it a bigger projection of my own inner self. So as I began to pay attention to that every single person is operating either from God or from ego, then I began to understand, are they operating in their third dimension of consciousness, of thinking? Are they reacting from childhood traumas? Are they reacting because they are insecure? They're in victim mode or bully mode? And it became really easy to see. This is why we say, oh my gosh, look at that politician acting like an 8-year-old. Well, that's because they're being driven by childhood stuff. And I began to have this incredible compassion for them. I began to understand, all these people that lie and cheat are insecure. No wonder No wonder they go into positions of power so that they can then compensate for that insecurity within. And then they get positions of power and they're willing to do whatever it takes to start making money or start getting more power. Then I can see where they would be compromised. I got compromised. I did things that were absolutely not what's the right word? Morally upstanding, having an affair with a friend's husband. Why? Because why not? I was getting my way. I'm satisfying that desire within me. If I had been in a position like in politics and I did something like that, guess what would happen? Those things would be caught somewhere. There'd be a movie. Are you listening to the P. Diddy stuff? There would be movies, there would be videos, there would be recordings, there would be something, because that is what egos do. When somebody is going to be willing to be compromised, somebody's going to take advantage of that because the ego is selfish and is going to use it to its own advantage, meaning, well, this is how I'm going to get promoted. You know, lots of people have gotten promoted because they were willing to do things that they might consider otherwise not upstanding. Maybe have sex with somebody, maybe pay for something, do things that are not morally correct, that are not loving, because they come from a greedy place. And I couldn't judge them because I have done it too. And the course taught me to not compare. Well, mine was just little because it only affected me and one other family. Politics, it affects the whole country. You can't do that. It is what it is. The frequency is what the frequency is. Little or big, it does not matter. But when you have a position of power and you use that lower frequency to get your way, then you pull a lot of people along with you if they think that you're their savior. So then I began to watch what was happening in 2016, and I began to recognize the dysfunction in the Democratic Party. And then I began to observe that Trump was running for election, but I wasn't quite ready to go for him, but I was not going to support the Democrats. So then I voted for the Green Party that year. After Trump won, I was so happy that he won. Then I started focusing on everything about him that everybody said was so bad. Before he ran for office, he was like an icon. I saw him as this amazing, successful person. I think he had done some things maybe that were unsavory? Well, who hasn't? Who hasn't? That's when I began to recognize what I had learned from Jesus before the Course in Miracles in the Bible. Don't point at the speck in somebody else's eye until you take the log out of your own eye. Course in Miracles helps us look at that log and remove it. And we remove it easiest by observing it in another. Because if I can see it in another, then I can, if I've been trained in self-awareness and everything is a mirror of me because everything is a projection, then there is nothing outside of me that is showing up that is not also in me. Now, two things. It shows up in me without a reaction because I've healed it. It shows up in me with a reaction because I haven't healed it. It's that simple. Course in Miracles is super, super simple for one who really, truly wants to understand the process of healing. And then you have to apply it. So then what began to happen is I noticed very quickly as Trump was becoming was moving into his functions and doing the things that he said he was going to do. The things that I remember that he said at the beginning was he was going to drain the swamp. And you know what that meant to me? He was going to get rid of the low frequencies that existed within our political system. To me, the swamp, a nasty, mucky, yucky place within me where I operated in low frequencies. So he wanted to rid the political arena of the swamp. He wanted to get rid of the swamp creatures. So what began to happen? Because I was an observer. By this point, I was being the presence of awareness, not judging, but observing what was happening because I was a student of what happens when we listen to the voice of the ego. Because I wanted to master that within me, I had to become one who could observe it on the outside because I was moving myself to the frequency of neutrality, meaning I couldn't judge it out there. I can't judge it out there if I want to be moving to a higher frequency. And neutrality is a place where you can observe it and go, oh, wow, these people are still in ego. These people are operating with a higher frequency. And I saw Trump right there operating in a frequency of courage, which was showing me that he was willing to sacrifice what he had. And, and I was paying attention to what was happening. This person who's a billionaire going into politics, and now he's being attacked and he can't run his business. His business is going to suffer. And then everybody else who's a politician really was a person without a whole lot of means. And then they get into politics and then they come out rich. So I was just observing things to the best of my ability, not judging, but judge I did from time to time. And then I would forgive myself. I had the tools to forgive myself for judging out there what I hadn't seen in here. I did the inner work. I shifted and I lifted my own frequencies. And then I began to be grounded more solidly in the ability to be neutral. And as I observed more and observed more, I was able to take what was being said about both sides. And then I would sit in contemplation with them. I would sit with God. What really is happening here? And I would be guided to the people who were conduits for channeling information that gave us more insights, because everybody who moves to the place of recognizing that there is something grander and opens themselves up to be a vessel that brings forth information is bringing us pieces of the puzzle. So I began to be drawn all synchronistically to those who were sharing the kind of information that were helping me see more clearly what was happening. And little by little by little, I began to understand that this world that we live in, the world of the ego, for thousands of years has been operating in the frequency of egoic consciousness. It's not bad. That's what we do in third dimension. That's what we do in this particular ride in the playground. The playground is the cosmos. And in the cosmos, you get to go to the ride that gives you that particular thrill that you're looking for. And the third dimension gives us the thrill of egoic control. Now, what is happening is that this little planet that could is deciding to shake off that lower density. And this planet is consciousness, as you and I are consciousness. Everything is made of consciousness. You can call it energy. This planet wants to ascend, and we incarnated because we wanted to ascend and help the planet ascend. But the only way that the planet can ascend, or she can ascend, the only way that the humans can ascend is we have to make a choice. Just as the planet Gaia, Mother Gaia, chose to ascend, we have free will. Everything has free will. Everything is consciousness choosing to have experiences. So we had to use free will. To have free will to want to ascend and have something different, like the Course in Miracles calls it a happy dream, to have a world that really is truly heaven on earth, we had to see the contrast. Because when you operate in a world where darkness is normal, you don't have a contrast. It's normal. It's part of what happens. Yeah, there's some good and there's some bad, but you accept it all as normal. When you start by choice to train your mind to see things differently, you begin to see, well, it's only normal because I've normalized it. But if I begin to choose to see things differently, to experience things differently, then I begin to recognize that I can create a new normal, that I can shift out of one frequency into another one, and that will be my new normal. So as I began to look at what was happening outside and use Donald Trump as my, he was really the opportunity for me to see anything that man is being attacked for. And all he's saying is he wants to drain the swamp. He wants to clean things up. He wants things to be, for justice to prevail, to be the same for every side. And I'm like, okay, well, that sounds good. Well, I mean, that sounds perfect. So as I began to observe what was he being accused for, I began to go do some research. I wanted to know, how do egos do those things? And I began to see the deliberate attempt to smear him Well, I know the ego. I know the ego in me. If I'm smearing somebody else, it's because I'm covering up something I don't want people to know about me. So it was very clear. If there is something that I have mastered, what a claim to fame. I have mastered understanding the insanity of the ego. But you have to understand the way the ego works so that you can transcend it. For you to end the trance of being in the illusion of separation, you need to see all the trickery that happens in the illusion of separation. Otherwise, you don't see the attachments, and you don't see the power plays. You don't see the way that we disempower ourselves by selling ourselves to gain favor, because we value money, we value positions, we value things outside of us. So I had to see, what are these people valuing to want to smear somebody who has done what he has done? And I'll tell you what, that rabbit hole is deep and dark. That is when you go to see the places where humans, our brothers and sisters, are willing to sell their souls for power, fame, and money. And what has to happen if you're going to wake up, if this planet is going to ascend, people must wake up and see what has been hidden so that we can make a choice not to do that again, so that we can get off that roller coaster and choose a different ride. So what is happening right now is that the light on this planet is so intense because so many people, and all we need is 51%. And clearly, if you look at the results of last night, we got more than 51% of people who are seeing that there are things in this world that need to change. And they don't need to be the big things, like some of the darkest things, which get into human trafficking, get into abuses of the most horrendous forms. But if you are going to be the light of the world, you can't judge it as a bad thing from a consciousness perspective. You need to observe it in neutrality as an option that some have chosen to dip their toes in. Some have chosen to take that ride. But when you begin to recognize that those kinds of ways of being that have been going on for thousands of years impact innocent children, and when you begin to really stand firm in that we are all children of God, and you've done your inner work, and you're now no longer going to judge somebody and take out revenge, because revenge is a very low energy, by the way. Revenge is a frequency that operates really low. And when you make a decision that you're not going to go down to those low frequencies, you will then, from a higher frequency, want the justice of God to prevail. Meaning, no child should be abused, no child should be sacrificed. But you are here not to judge those who did what they did, because if you understand the ego, you understand that the ones who were the bullies to the children who are the victims were bullied when they were little, meaning they too were victims first. Until we understand the cycle of the ego and how it shows up, you are not fully prepared to have the level of compassion that is necessary to bring about justice with forgiveness. And justice means that you let the system do what the system does, but in your heart, you have compassion. You forgive those who didn't know what they were doing. The game of the ego is insidious and has been going on for thousands of years. Not one of us who moves down this path and connects to God and is doing God's work can stand here as a judge of our brothers and sisters. Not if you are being honest, that you don't have the ability to judge, because you don't know what anything is for. You don't know the agreements, the contracts, why people chose the paths that they chose. But when you begin to recognize that no child should be abused, no one should be abused when they are not in a position to take care of themselves. I'm a grandmother. I don't want any children abused. I will be the first one to lay my life down for my grandbabies. Now I am feeling that grandmotherly energy for all humans. Every being on this planet is, to me, is my grandchild, is my child, is me. So when you move into that place, then you just sit and you ask God, what would you have me do? From that place, the most important thing that I could do was to put my energy behind electing somebody who was at the frequency of courage, who could do in this world what needed to be done to expose what is happening and bring an end to the corruptions, to the lying, to the cheating that's been taking place. You know, the lying and the cheating is not just in the political arena. That just happens to be a place that allows for things to happen if you're connected. But the medical establishment is totally, completely corrupt. It is filled with egos who move to positions of power, who want fame, power, and money. Then you look into the education system, same thing. You go into the entertainment system, same thing. The ego always seeks to get power and money and fame because it needs things from the outside to make it feel good. That is why we need to face the ego. We need to understand the part inside of us, this hungry little Pac-Man that is constantly sucking the energy of everything that is around us because it's looking outside of itself to fill itself up. The only thing that is going to end that is when we begin to see those who are operating in that level of frequency and remind them, hey, you're not a hungry little monster. You are a child of God. There is something in you that needs to come forward and be expressed with humanity. And somewhere in your childhood, somebody told you it wasn't there. So then you turned into one who went to get it from others. And as we grow up, we as parents take power from our children. We think that we know better. My goodness, the things that I did to my kids, made them, eat food that they didn't want to eat, sit and read books that they didn't want to read, play with people that they didn't want to play with, all because I was trying to control. So whether it's something like that or forcing a child to have sex with an adult or forcing a child to experience physical pain, I had a little bit of it, but it wasn't what you would call a traumatized childhood because, I grew up, spankings were normal back then, including with shoes. And there were a couple times my mom used to wear high heels. I had those little pointy heels. I saw those little dents in my butt. But anyhow, we need to stop blaming those who are operating at the lowest levels of consciousness because they are hurting the worst. Anybody who hurts another person is someone who needs deep healing. Humanity is at a place that when we connect together and when we decide to, as a unity, recognize the divinity in each and every one, then we can begin to call everybody to ascension. My intention is not to take revenge on a single person on this planet. If it was up to me, I would put all of these people in some form of rehab. You could call it jail, that's okay. But those jails will be equipped with loving people who understand teachings like the Course, who can bring about the kind of therapies to help people see who they are. We don't need to send people into jail and punish them and make them angrier and then have them come out looking for more revenge. That's why, in the jail system, people keep coming back because they go out there and do something. They've got so much pent up anger. It's going to take a couple of generations to move people out of the belief that we are not good enough, that we're not valuable, that we got to get our value and our worth and our love from outside of ourselves, that our self-worth and our net worth are somehow tied. The people who need the biggest net worth to be happy and they can't share it with others, and hungry little Pac-Mans that need more and more and more, the 1% who wants us to own nothing and be happy and they get to own everything, those are the ones who are hurting the most. Those are the ones who need the most compassion from each and every one of us. So now I want to take our attention to the Course in Miracles. So last week, right now, we're in chapter 31 in the Course, beautiful book right here. We're in chapter 31 in the text, and it's the final vision. The final vision is showing us where we are right now. We are at the end of an era. We're at the end of the ego's era. And I want to show you this chart that I use all the time to help people see that either you are the light, but you have a little bit of ego in you because you believe you're also a human. but you operate with God's belief system. You operate inside of that consciousness that has you know that well-being is your natural state, that you are abundant, you are the essence of acceptance, you are honest, you operate in eternal life, you don't have fears because you know the truth of who you are. Or your mind has been so darkened with delusions that yes, you'll always have the light of God in you, because if you're still alive, then the essence of God, the soul that you are, is still there. The body carries all of that density. It gets polluted. That's what sickness and all of those things that we're having to deal with is because the body is the receptacle that holds the density of a mind that doesn't operate at the highest frequencies of love. So all that stuff gets poured into our bodies in the form of sickness. And guess who profits from that? Those who are operating at their lowest levels of frequency, because they think that they're less than until they take everything they can from you. They take your money. They take, because you pay for it when you go to the doctors. You pay for it when you participate in entertainment. They can make me happy. That movie will lift my spirits, whatever it is. So they are at the lowest points needing to suck. Why? Because they're hungry little Pac-Mans. That's what the ego is. So the lowest of the lowest make sure that we go down there with them. So the ego's world, that is what the third dimension has been primarily about, operates in darkness and suffering and sickness and telling us we're not good enough. Advertising is all about telling us what we need to make us happy. They're master manipulators at having us not remember the truth of who we are. That is why it is so freaking hard for humanity to wake up. And that's why I'm so excited right now, because we have someone who recognizes that this is not okay. Even if he is not necessarily doing at a level of consciousness of A Course in Miracles and uses that language, just the sheer desire to end this darkness shows me that there's a very elevated level of consciousness that doesn't have to speak my language, but the actions speak for themselves. That to me is the example of beings who are willing to participate in bringing about the type of leadership that is necessary to establish a recognition of what our founding fathers sacrificed their lives for, to establish that all men and women are created equal, that we have all been endowed by our Creator with the same inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Course in Miracles says our purpose is to be happy. Donald Trump, the Republicans, the Democrats, they don't have to tell me God's purpose is for you to be happy. What they need to do is ensure that nobody stands in the way of you being able to experience happiness. Pursue it at whatever level you want. That's why laws and orders are necessary, but they need to be applied equally to everybody. And that to me is an exciting thing, because when we begin to get rid of, and by getting rid of is just exposing and saying no more to the processes that produce war through greed, that wars that continue to kill our brothers and sisters are done because somebody's profiting from them. And when I went down my rabbit hole, I found out that both sides of the wars are always funded by the same people. And I went, what? You mean this side is funding that side too? The good guys are funding the bad guys? And I realized it's all one and the same. It's an illusion that has been maintained to keep us sending our hard-earned money to government through forms of taxes. This is why when Trump says that he's going to end the IRS, hello, do you know why? Because our founding fathers, when you start going down that rabbit hole, you realize that our founding fathers said your income should never be taxed. Your income is the work that you do through the sweat of your brow. So humanity has been conditioned to think that it is normal that you work hard and then you give your money to somebody else. You know what that's called? Enslavement. And humanity is waking up from the delusion that we need to keep working so hard to buy more things to make us happy because advertisement tells us that. And our favorite movie star wears the gown that we have to feel good about ourselves. and the movie star or the football player or whatever, they drive the car that a man feels is the toy that he has to feel manly man, like a manly man. When we stop playing this delusional game that we need to continue to stay on a treadmill to get stuff to be who we already are by the nature of who we are, made in the image of the Creator, whole and complete, perfect and magnificent. Hello? When we see that the world of advertising, that the media has been contributing, collaborating, all in keeping us totally, completely deluded and unaware of who we are, this world is going to have an amazing shift. So inside of the Course in Miracles, we've been reading pretty much the same thing, haven't we? Those who've been with me for a long time, this is episode 171. So we've been doing this for going on almost probably now over 4 years. We take the word from the Course and we see how it applies to our lives. So in the last couple of paragraphs, we've been seeing in section number 1, the title of this is called The Simplicity of Salvation. Salvation is very simple. You're either listening to the ego or you're listening to God. Very, very simple. And then it tells us that the only reason we don't know the truth is because we have been conditioned to learn the lies. Since the moment that we're itty bitty, we're told that we're separate. We're told we're not enough. We got to listen to mother, father, then teacher, then preacher, then the government, then the media, then the boss. We've always been taught to go outside of ourselves. We have learned to disempower ourselves. Course in Miracles says that we have one problem. That's the authority problem. We've been taught to think that power exists outside of us. The media has done a wonderful job by giving us a show, Father Knows Best, and then showing us that if we don't listen to the government, we're going to go to jail. You know, that crazy stuff that happened in the 70s when all these beautiful, loving people, call them the hippies, all they wanted to do was listen to music and have a good time and smoke weed, something that is natural. And what happened? They started, getting in trouble. And weed all of a sudden became illegal. And then we started fearing the government because Father knows best. And always the government was always the man. So we have little by little been conditioned to give our power away. Here the Course says that learning, in paragraph 5, it says the first sentence says, learning is an ability you made and gave yourself. So humans have taught how to learn. And we're taught how to learn through repetition, 12 years sitting in a chair in a room where you listen to somebody in the front and they know better than you. So the mind has been conditioned. That's what we've been looking here. Then in paragraph number 6, we are being told that, God doesn't will for us to have suffering. God wills for us to listen to the voice of God within, which is the Holy Spirit. And then it says, which lesson do you want to learn? So as we begin to understand through the Course and we train our mind into understanding these thoughts of control, when you see suppression in the media, when you see people whose lives are decimated because they went against the establishment, can you say COVID? Anybody who spoke against what the Biden administration said, they were suppressed, censored. I had quite a few YouTubes that were, I got notices. Facebook censored me because I was putting out disinformation. I wasn't so famous that I made it into the Disinformation 12. I wish I would have been. That's a great group I would love to be a part of. But I definitely understood enough about what is going on here. So let's go into paragraph 6. Last week we finished paragraph 5. So paragraph 6 says, is this a little voice so small? And voice is capitalized because the voice of the Holy Spirit is what we're talking about here, which was talked about in the previous paragraphs. Is this a little voice so small and still, it cannot rise above the senseless noise of sounds that have no meaning? So when you begin to find out, God says that you're holy, that you're magnificent, so is everybody else. But the ego is loud and tells you, oh, bad person there, bad man orange, bad woman, Indian, American, African, whatever she happens to be. When you are listening to the judgmental voice, is that voice so much more powerful that the little voice, still voice of God within can't rise? Only if you don't let it. That's why we have to make a conscious decision to get familiar with these two voices and then choose the one that is going to run our lives. Because the result of our experience can be very drastically different. So God willed not his son forget him. God wants you to remember the truth that you are loved, that you are whole, that you are complete, that you are magnificent. God wants you to know that. But for you to know that, you've got to make a choice to listen to that voice. And the power of his will in sentence number 3, and the power of his will is in the voice that speaks for him. I watch my little grandbabies. There is some joy that comes from within them that nobody taught them. It is natural. That voice has been in my children. I saw it when they were born. That voice was in me. I remember as a child having that level of joy in my life. However, I learned very quickly to listen to the voice of the ego, which drowned out the voice of my soul. We all do that. We all go through that indoctrination process, domestication, programming, whatever you want to call it. It's the process of suppressing the voice for God, because we begin to listen to the voice of the ego, and it's always seeking for rewards outside of ourselves. Sentence number 4 says, which I said earlier, which lesson do you want to learn? Which lesson will you learn? Number 5 says, what outcome is inevitable, sure as God, and far beyond all doubt and question? What could be more inevitable than God's will? So here's the amazing thing. God wills that we be free. So there was absolutely nothing that was going to get in the way of Donald Trump winning that election, because he was operating at a frequency that was about providing freedom from control. Freedom is a higher frequency. When God knows that everybody deserves to be free, and somebody wants to ensure that that is the way that our systems operate, that our justice system operates in justice, then we must undo that which seeks to suppress, that which seeks to decide that some deserve but others don't. So do not doubt the power of God, because if God wills for humanity to be free, the only thing that is going to keep you from experiencing that freedom is your willingness to listen to that voice within that speaks for that. Sentence number 6, can it be your little learning, strange in outcome and incredible in difficulty? Do you think that little learning will withstand the simple lessons being taught to you in every moment of each day since time began and learning had been made? Do you think God's will, the creator of the universe, is going to stop? It is going to be stopped by little humans, insecure little humans? I don't think so. So now we have an opportunity to choose, which track are we going to get on? Are we going to get on God's track, or are we going to stay on the ego's track? And on the ego's track, you get to create that reality, and it's okay. And some people are going to choose to operate in those low frequencies. But what is happening is the tracks are splitting. Happened for a while. And those who choose to operate from the higher frequency are going to find themselves in a whole new world. Eckhart Tolle called it a new earth. And by the way, he was a student of A Course in Miracles, 30 plus years as a student of the course. That's what has helped him move out of his depression. So he writes this book, A New Earth, speaking about what's happening in the world. Mass consciousness is starting to activate a desire for a new way of doing things. We don't want to do it the same old way that was normal as had been taught before, because that means you've got to give up your power. You have to enslave yourself in a system that too many of the young children now, I see that in my kids, they don't want to have traditional jobs. They want to do something that is thrilling to them. They don't like paying taxes. They're like, Mom, we get why you stopped paying taxes 5-6 years ago. I decided I'm not participating in that. And I don't care. I wasn't afraid of the system. And well, in the beginning I was. So I had to work through those fears. And then I was like, no, I am going to honor what I know is true for me as a sovereign, free being created in the image of God. And lo and behold, then comes a president that begins to talk about ending the IRS, because the IRS is not constitutional, because our founding fathers knew when they came here, they didn't want to continue to suppress humanity as they had been by the monarchy on the other side of the pond. So the same thing happens. The same hungry Pac-Mans that want power, money, they need slaves who will provide that for them. I mean, when you understand the system, you can see how simple it is. Why? Because salvation is simple. Know who you are and stop pretending that you're less than that. And guess what? That upsets the status quo that needs you to continue to behave the way they need you to behave, because we have all been imprisoned in cages that are made of bars that are called beliefs. We can't see the bars because they're invisible, but they are just as powerful in our mind, causing people to drink themselves into oblivion, to believe that they're not good enough, to commit suicide because the pressures of being a human are ridiculous. No human should have to experience that if we treat each other with the reverence of the truth of what we are, all created equal, endowed with the same inalienable rights. If we have a leader who is willing to assemble a team to ensure that that is what everybody experiences, isn't that amazing? That's what I voted for. Let's go to paragraph number 7. The lesson to be learned, or the lessons to be learned, are only 2. You see it right there. 2 lessons, period. You're going to listen to the ego, you're going to listen to God. That's it. That's all we need to do, is understand the beliefs from either side are very different. The frequencies are very different. Each has its outcome in a different world, and each world follows surely from its source. The certain outcome of the lesson that God's Son is guilty is the world that you see. The world that we see has a justice system that likes to punish people. What we are going to be creating is a justice system, not only that treats everybody the same. There's going to be no favoritism based on if you're part of this monarchy or part of that family or part of this, you have this money and you can get off. It's going to treat everybody equally, but it is going to be designed to provide rehabilitation of the mind. That is where we're going. It's already happening in some Scandinavian countries, and the results are amazing. Why? Because when you help train somebody's mind into remembering who they are, then they don't need to go hurt somebody else because they have healed their own wound. Sentence number 5 says, it is a world of terror and despair. This is the world that we are in right now. Nor is there hope of happiness in it. There is no plan for safety you can make that ever will succeed. Why in the richest country, the most, smartest country, why do we still have homelessness? Why do we still have trafficking? Why do we still have people getting sick by taking medicine? Why is it still happening? Isn't that barbaric? Isn't that ridiculous? Well, it's happening because hungry little Pac-Mans have been feeding themselves. The ego is all about what's in it for me. This is a journey of deciding, you know what, I'm going to sacrifice my cushy life, and I'm going to go do something for the greater good of all. And some people are doing that today. They're not career politicians. Isn't that amazing? Something has activated their hearts. And maybe they've got the finances where they can let somebody else run those things and they can serve the world, the country. Good for them. Thank you, is what I say to somebody who's willing to do that. Then it goes on to say in sentence 8, there is no joy that you can seek from here and hope to find. There's nothing in this world that the ego has made that has any sustained, lasting joy. It's not, you can't find it. The lovers leave you, the jewelry gets stolen, the cars get hit, the jobs get lost, the skin ages and cracks and wrinkles. There's nothing on the outside that is going to ever be lasting. Yet, this is not the only outcome which your learning can produce. You can use your learning, your ability to learn, to train your mind differently. It can give you a different outcome. However, much you may have overlearned your chosen task, the lesson that reflects the love of God is stronger still. And you will learn God's Son is innocent and see another world. We're going to stop there at the end of paragraph number 7 because we're at the top of the hour. That last sentence, let me read that again. The last two sentences. However much you may have overlearned your chosen task to, to be in the world and do the things that the world teaches you to do, the lesson that reflects the love of God is stronger still. I had a cushy life. We had a lot of money. We had second homes. I was, I had fame in my community. I was well known. I had done and become and achieved and acquired all the things that I needed to do to be a perfect East Cobb mom, housewife, realtor. And none of that made me happy because all of it was acquired to prove my ego, to prove to my ego that I could be somebody, that I could have stuff. And when the divorce came and the marriage ended, when my child was doing drugs and I was about to lose him, when things on the outside were no longer as easy, when my mother died and I was feeling depression for the first time, when I couldn't control and manage the pretty facade that I had built and everything began to crumble, the only voice that was there was the voice of God, calling me back to myself. It was not easy, but it was always simple. Salvation is simple. I just needed to train myself to remember to listen to the voice that only had beautiful, loving things to say about me and everybody else. My ego didn't want to hear that there were good things, redeemable things about me or anybody else for that matter. But I had to train myself to override that liar. Our greatest enemy is the liar within. And it won't lie to you if you know the truth. That's how the truth sets us free. But you have to be willing to listen to the truth that is already in you. This is why we got to stop seeking outside, because that which has the most incredible liberation for us, the opportunity for peace, the opportunity for true lasting joy is within. And guess what? The world on the outside, the big corporations, the few corporations that run everything, the BlackRocks, the Vanguards of the world, the hierarchies, the monarchies, those things are beginning to be seen for what they are. Hungry little monsters that seek to control the rest of humanity, enslave humanity to become worker bees that just produce. And you can't just produce and have a good life. You got to produce and get sick with the poisoning of the air, the poisoning of the water, the poisoning of the food. When we begin to see what has happened, you will see, wow, that was a really cool ride. Oh my God, we were really creative. We disempowered ourselves in so many ways. We participated in creating this is the most horrific movie that we could ever have created, because we have free will. And if you're done with horror films, if you're done with scary rides, you are being invited to get off of that ride, but you cannot get off of it until you do the inner work to see that everybody is just as innocent. The last line says, and you will learn God's Son is innocent. That's how you will see another world. That's Jesus showed us that 2,000 years ago. We've got to forgive them. They don't know what they're doing because they're under the delusion of a liar that tells them that they're not okay. So when they get a little bit of power, they try to get it from somebody else. The only way to stop this insanity, and it's going to take a few generations because we got to train people's minds, and we got people like me trained ourselves, and then we begin to become more conscious parents, and we begin to teach our children different ways of looking at things, and then they teach their children, like my grandchildren are growing up in a more conscious way than I ever did. So it takes time to break the chain of pain. It is generational by the nature of the game that we play. But what's so exciting is the Course in Miracles will show you how to undo the suffering that is caused by basically your ignorance of how powerful you are and how amazing you are. But to be able to hear the voice for God, you got to make a choice to stop listening to the voice for the ego. How do you do that? You got to understand what the ego says. That's it. Salvation is so simple. Make a list of what the ego says, make a list of what God says, and then choose. Which one do you want to listen to? Because the outcome is going to be very different. This is the world the ego made, and is suffering, and it's going to crumble because it's dark. The world that God created is a world where everything is for the greater good of all. All men and women are created equal, and we uphold their lives, their liberty, and their pursuit of happiness, because it doesn't come from a human, it comes from God. And what we are waking up to is that we have to stand as examples of what happens when we listen to God, and not judge our fellow brothers and sisters, but show them the way by being the way, just as Jesus did for us. So with that, we conclude this transmission. That was a good one. I can't wait to go back and listen to it. So if anybody has any comments or questions, and just unmute yourself, I would love to hear from you. If not, as always, thank you for being here on my YouTube channel. You can find the other 170 episodes, except for the ones that YouTube banned because I said certain things that they didn't like. Like that you are a powerful creator. You don't have to take a thing in your arm if you don't want to. Anyways, unmute yourselves if you want to share anything. Otherwise, I can feel your love because I can feel your presence here. See you all then next week on Wednesday, 12 o'clock, same time. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it. Please help promote these messages. They'll be on my YouTube and they'll be on my Facebook.
Thank you, Lina. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, sweetie.
And congratulations.
Oh, thanks for the love. Appreciate
That
it.
was awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Everything is already written, right? The script is written.
It's a good one if you want to be on that ride. You'll be miserable if you choose that ride too.
Yeah.
And I love
you.
it too. Yeah,
Thank
I
Everybody-
you.
love it that we're choosing the rides for the thrills. So, good idea. How can I get a thrill, but in a happy one?
Yes, yes.
I want to experience excitement, something,
But not at
and feel my power. Yeah.
yeah, but not at the cost of somebody else. That's what we are about to shift.
Yes.
Nobody has to suffer for somebody else to succeed. That those
Yes,
days.
and thank you, Lina.
Bye-bye.
Love you all.
Yeah,
Bye bye.
bye.
Wonderful. Bye.